I've been wanting to get your take on this. I don't if you're gonna do a show on it, please save it for the show. But I'm curious your thoughts about race in the NBA MVP. Like
Yo, so we
this
did something on it a couple weeks ago about
on
the
the
Perk and JJ
yeah, yeah,
going
yeah.
back and forth. Okay. So there's so many more levels that I could engage in the limited time frame that I had there. This is where this gets interesting to me. And you guys covered the NBA, followed the NBA, been around basketball. There's one thing that I think you guys understand. Overall, nobody is harder on white basketball players than white people.
White people, no
Absolutely.
question.
Right.
No
There's a low
No
self-esteem inside when it comes to basketball that manifests itself in a self-hatred, except when that white dude turns out to be good. And once
Then
that white dude turns out
it's
to be
over.
good, or at the very least, just a little charming, see Austin Reeves, Matthew Dellavedova,
Right.
all of these types, right? Then there's like Grayson Allen, who nobody likes, so he might be the only underrated white player ever. But like when they get to that fan favorite point, it starts getting to go a little too far. I think it goes too far with Luka Doncic, who I think is a very, very, very good player with a type of game that I think a lot of his acolytes would be far more critical of if he was a different person, right?
Yeah.
But the Jokic thing, the people who were saying Jokic by far, I think there's a race element to it, perhaps, but not as a like favoring Jokic as much as the people who lean really hard on the analytics tend to be white dudes. And they tend to be white dudes who all hang out with each other. Like it's those podcasts that
Echo
you go
chamber.
listen. Yeah, it's those podcasts that you go listen to if you white and you like basketball, but you just don't really want to have to think about the black people for a little while. Like you can go check, but it's like it winds up being all that whole crew of people that are trumpeting Jokic, and they keep talking about advanced numbers as if triple-double average and shooting 60% from the floor wouldn't be enough, right?
Well,
but
yeah.
they all go there, and then if you're from the outside and you just hear it's all these white dudes who keep telling you about this dude who don't really look like your concept of a great basketball player and how great he is, and then when you try to push back on it, tell you that you're too stupid to understand the advanced numbers or anything else, then those people are likely to believe that there's a racial dynamic that undergirds the origin of it with Jokic. Mm-hmm. The problem is, at least at the time that this discussion got started, he was having one of the 10 greatest regular seasons in the history of the NBA. like there's just, yes, defensive win shares are a stat that's a bit skewed and give you a lot of credit for rebounding and everything else. That's fine. I totally get you. But are you watching this? I've never seen anything like this before with this dude. And so Embiid may go down as 3-time back-to-back runner-up MVP, and all of those years were MVP caliber years in other times. Kevin Durant in 2013 had an MVP caliber year that he did not win it because LeBron James had one of the 10 greatest seasons of all time. Like occasionally this happens, but I do think, and this was my point about JJ when I brought it up on Game Theory, you can't be out here talking down to people when you try to make this point and be like, there's absolutely no racial bias. Don't ever say that.
How can you do that in America?
Yeah. Slow down, big homie.
I was with you for a minute there.
Yeah. Don't go there. Like I don't think it's ever an unfair question to ask, but I didn't think that the answer was that race played a role in it. However, since then, Embiid took off. The Nuggets struggled, and quietly Kendrick Perkins, for all the hell he caught, redirected the MVP race, and it is now far more competitive than it was when he made those statements.
You know what's funny about that is that you're right about this in the sense that it's not. I will listen to anybody's argument, even if it's based on advanced numbers. But there's always kind of a aftertaste to a discussion when it's someone from the advanced stats community. The aftertaste is always, and if you don't agree with me, you're not smart enough to understand this. You know what I mean? Like, yes. And it's like, wait a minute. I mean, I can appreciate Jokic. I think he's great. He's having a great season, but you have to acknowledge that if you look at a number like per, 8 of the top 20 pers of all time have happened since 2015.
Yes.
Which means that these numbers are somewhat skewed. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, this is definitely the juice ball era.
Skewed.
And see, that number is interesting because I've never used it. I always felt like it was an index that didn't necessarily indicate anything. So case in point, when the NCAA used to use RPI for the tournament field. And what they
right.
did
Yeah.
was they just cooked up some numbers and you got a result at the end. And it seemed like a good number. So you roll with it. A quarterback rating, not the new QBR stat, but the old quarterback rating in the NFL. It was the same way where I'm like, speaking in technical terms, so like, what is the dependent variable? Like, what are we solving for? What is this supposed to mean? And nobody gives you a real answer. Like, I've got the ones that I kind of pick and choose. And really, win shares per 48 is the only one that I go to because I feel like box score plus or minus doesn't really tell us anything.
I mean, every stat is a stat. It's just a stat.
It's a
That's all.
They're all tools. Like, you know what else is a stat? Points per game.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're all.
You can't use that. Can't use that. That's out.
No.
That's out.
But they're all tools. I think the thing, though, that happens with Jokic, and this is the disconnect between the analytics community and the people who lean more toward qualitative measures, is that playoff basketball, one, is not the same as the basketball that you get from the 82 game sample. Like, there are structural differences that matter. It's the same thing with football. They play the playoffs in the cold and outside and everything else. Like, those numbers aren't as reflective. Like Rudy Gobert and the crazy advanced numbers that he could put up, they didn't translate into the postseason. Jokic, to a degree, they haven't translated to the postseason. But what we do know matters in the postseason, even if not all the time. Take a guy like Trae Young, of whom I am not a big fan, but Trae Young's got that. Need a shot? Got you. I can do that. And you need that in the playoffs. That's how they got to the conference finals, because they had that guy that could do that thing. Jokic's game, to me, is not one that people look at as, all right, big fella, we're going to need you to go get 45 for us tonight. Can you do it? And the truth is, he might be able to. It just hasn't happened. And when you start talking about a game that is so hinged upon getting the ball to other people, well, in the playoffs, are you really trusting those guys to hit those shots that they were hitting in the regular season? No, you going to have to be the one to do it. And I think people look at an Embiid or look at a Giannis, and they see a guy that they think can impose his will on a game and thereby make it happen. They don't think that about Jokic. I think this year you're going to see it, and it wouldn't shock me if he just had a 2-month bananas run through this because he tired of us.
Yeah. Yeah. No question. I'm also like the devaluation of certain triple doubles troubles. You know what I mean? Like Jokic's triple doubles are sacrosanct, but Russell Westbrook's ain't shit. You know what I mean? Like, so that's like, come on. Like, okay. What I love is, well, you know, he's just padding his stats by getting rebounds off of missed free throws. Did he get the rebound?
Well, the problem that I had with
he did get the rebound at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, the problem I had with it when they were doing that with Russell was it was clear that Oklahoma City in particular was strategically boxing out to get into the fast break faster so that he could get the ball. Like there was an element to it. Now, it was worth noting, if you looked at like Steven Adams' rebounding statistics after he left Oklahoma City, it was clear they were giving some rebounds to Russell Westbrook. My problem, and this is something, you know, those of us of this age, there's not a single person in the league for rebounding anymore. Like, rebounding as its own particular skill has been so de-emphasized by the three-point shot because it's long rebounds. And that's how, like, Jokic has as many triple doubles in his career now as LeBron James. That's crazy, right? That's a sign of the change of the game.
Right.
It's not, you know, they're taking a lot more shots and everything else. That's about the change in the game. It isn't about all of a sudden these guys are just so much better at this. But I feel like the lean on analytics is removing accountability from everybody. Make your own decision, whether you be an executive, a media person. Tell me what you actually think. Don't just tell me what comes off this page. Tell me what you think. So do I think Jokic has been the best player in the NBA for 3 straight regular seasons? Yes. Have I thought he's the best player in the NBA for those 3 seasons? No. Him or Giannis, I'm taking Giannis. Him or Embiid, it gets tougher, but I'm probably still taking Embiid because he's a defensive vortex.